This man can stop chainsaws, destroy armies of bad guys, defeat ninjas, fight Bruce Lee, and he can kill Bill. Chuck Norris is widely recognized as one of the strongest action stars ever, and in the early 80s, he was seen as the biggest action star in the world. But a decade later, in the early 90s, he was a faded star. So, what happened? Norris was actually born Carlos Ray Norris in 1940, Oklahoma, in the United States. His mother was Irish and his father was of Cherokee descendant. His father was also a World War II Army veteran, and one of his brothers actually died in the Vietnam War. As a kid, his family struggled financially, and Chuck described his childhood as downbeat. After his parents' divorce, Norris moved with his mother to Kansas.
Yeah. And the thing is, I reflect back, my dad was an alcoholic, my real father. First time in my life I faced off my real father, and my dad's a big man.
And from here, he joined the army at 18, where he was stationed in South Korea and began to learn martial arts. And more specifically, Tansho-do, Taekwondo, Karate, Judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Filipino martial arts, and by the 1960s, he had founded American Tang Soo-do and Chun Chok-do in the 90s. This man's martial arts skills are stacked.
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not. It's
Gets
gross.
the people going.
It's
No, that's enough!
By the late 60s, Norris was a martial arts instructor, but also a champion, a grand champion, in fact, between 1968 and 1969. That's when he captured karate's Triple Crown for the most tournament victories in a year. His LA-based martial arts training saw him teach his celebs like Priscilla Presley, Elvis Presley's wife, Donnie and Marie Osmond, and Steve McQueen. And his brushes with such people meant that his transition into Hollywood was smooth, making his movie debut in The Wrecking Crew in 1968 with an uncredited cameo. The movie also starred Dean Martin and Sharon Tate. Now, if you know about Sharon Tate, you may know about her unfortunate murder, but you may also know that she trained with Bruce Lee. And therefore, it comes as no surprise to you that Bruce Lee also contributed off-screen as the film's karate advisor, choreographing the fight scenes. His next movie was actually alongside Bruce Lee 4 years later in 1972 with The Way of the Dragon, where he played the villain Colt. Bruce Lee and Norris knew each other from the tournaments in the 60s. Lee served as judge and advisor at some of those championships that Norris was competing at. They grew a great respect for one another's talent and began a friendship before sparring together, and in this movie, that relationship came to the fore. The Way of the Dragon was a monumental hit. On a budget of just $130,000, it made $130 million worldwide. But the movie actually came out in 1974 in the US, which is one whole year after Enter the Dragon, meaning that Norris's big screen debut in Hollywood as a central character wasn't seen until 1974. And for such an iconic scene with the legendary Bruce Lee, it didn't really propel Norris into the mainstream. Because despite the movie doing so well and his fight being so great, Norris didn't actually really do anything movie-wise until 5 years on from 1972, when he headlined the 1977 low-budget movie Breaker, which was a surprise hit, grossing $12 million on just a $250,000 budget. And this huge profit showed that Norris can carry a movie on his back.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
However, it must be said that the New York Times dismissed it as shoddy with wooden direction and a so-off cast, and the Los Angeles Times labeled it as a tokey, melodramatic exploitation hybrid. However, I'm going to quickly move on from that because I don't want to anger Mr. Norris.
You're beginning to irritate me.
What followed on from this was a quick succession of very low-budget movies but with massive box offices. Good Guys Wear Black, A Force of One, and The Octagon all arrived between 1978 and 1980, and all amassed a total of $60 million plus. Now at this point, it must be said that none of these movies were actually made by the infamous Big Five Hollywood movie studios. They were all independent movies, meaning that although Norris was killing it, he was also still on the fringes of mainstream success. That was until 1982 with the movie Silent Rage, which was released by Columbia Pictures. And the success of that movie saw him sign his first big picture deal. It was a 3-movie deal with MGM, and the first movie they made was Forced Vengeance.
Take off, Ace.
Oh, I'll see you later, Joy.
However, this 3-movie deal was rather premature, because after very poor box office results of The Forced Vengeance, making just $6 million, both parties terminated the contract.
Uh-oh.
One of the massive players in Hollywood in the 80s were Orion Pictures. They released the original Terminator,
I'll be back.
RoboCop,
I'd buy that for $1.
and even won Oscars for Amadeus and Platoon. They were linked to Warner Brothers, one of the big 5 Hollywood studios. So they were huge, until they weren't. In 1991, they filed for bankruptcy, and by 1997, they were absorbed into, wait for it, MGM, the same company that Norris had issues with. But in the 80s, they were a powerful studio, and they were the dream team behind Lone Wolf McQuade.
Lone Wolf McQuade.
Featuring Norris as Texas Ranger Jim J.J. McQuade, a lone wolf lawman who patrols the desert borderlands with nothing but his .44 Magnum and his trusty wolf. No, this isn't a parody, this is a real movie.
You serious?
And it is considered one of Norris's best movies. It also stars Kung Fu actor David Carradine as the bad guy. You may know him as this.
Hello, kiddo.
The movie was another hit, but also a bit of a comeback after the flop of Forced Vengeance. Now, if you've seen my Van Damme video in this series, you know a little bit about Cannon Films and their owners, and a bit about some of the trash they made.
Father!
In the 80s, but there's no denying that for a while they were also big players in the independent Hollywood scene. So when they teamed up with Norris, it was a match made in heaven.
War.
Missing in Action 2, Code of Silence, Invasion USA were all Cannon movies and were all hits, including this scene from Code of Silence. Would the dudes just wait around for their turn to attack?
But in the movies, whenever a crowd of like 50 guys surrounds someone like you in a movie, the guy comes at you one at a time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's true.
That's true.
It's like 15 guys surround you and they've got lead pipes and everything.
Well,
Then they come at you one at one and it's just like...
that's the only way you can win.
Yeah, but if we have 200 people here tonight. If they all rushed right now, we could take him. Just all together.
Well, I feel
Maybe
sorry
not.
for the first 3 guys.
All this laid the groundwork for another massive Cannon Norris hit, a movie called Delta Force. Co-starring fellow tough guy Lee Marvin. Now, let's just put an underline under all these movies so far. Let's be honest, these movies were not high art. From Breaker all the way up into these canon movies, none of them were high art. They all worked on the same simple premise. Bad guys exist, Chuck Norris kicks their asses, straight-faced, bearded, fist, feet, guns, whatever it takes to get the job done. And this continued throughout the rest of the 80s. Same premise, same story, same result. In fact, to be honest with you, this was the cornerstone of most low-budget action movies of the 80s. Whether it was Canon Films, whether it was Orion, whether it was Steven Seagal, whether it was Van Damme, the formula worked brilliantly. Until it didn't work. Because in 1991, moving into a new decade, with the release of his movie, The Hitman, the cracks were beginning to show. The movie only made $4.6 million, and Norris's decision to become the lead of the TV show Walker, Texas Ranger was quite a significant one. The show was a massive hit for CBS and became one of the most defining action series of the 1990s. The show ran for 9 seasons from 1993 to 2001, airing 203 episodes. And it would be fair to say that Norris's true popularity came from this show rather than his movies. In fact, his 90s, when it came to movies, were a string of straight-to-video releases that didn't fare too well. It was only really in the 2000s that Chuck Norris became a massive name in the cultural consciousness. One of his biggest grossing movies to date is 2004's Dodgeball, A True Underdog Story, a comedy gem of a movie where he makes a quick cameo.
Fate hangs on the thumb of our final judge. Thumbs up, average Joes can play.
And in 2005, he became an internet meme with his now famous Chuck Norris facts, when fans began circulating hyperbolic facts about his toughness.
Here we go. These are 10 of them right here. And number 10 is when Chuck Norris does push-ups, he doesn't push himself up, he pushes the earth down.
Which further added to the man's legend. And then his last theatrical movie release to date was The Expendables 2.
I heard another rumor that you were bitten by a king cobra.
Yeah, I was. But after 5 days of agonizing pain, the cobra died.
Which also, in turn, is his highest ever grossing movie, making $314 million worldwide. And aside from that, it's been rather plain sailing for Norris. He's appeared in numerous commercials, and then in 2019 he headlined Chuck Norris Badass Military Vehicles on the History Channel. And in the same year, his non-profit Kickstart Kids program continued expanding in US schools, teaching discipline through karate.
Chuck Norris had grown up like many of the kids that we originally targeted. They are somewhat conditioned for failure. Very few of them had positive role models. It wasn't until he was in the Air Force and got to start training in judo did he realize I can accomplish things.
And then in August 2019, he helped open the first US Academy, and all this leads back to his tale about his real father's alcohol abuse and their square up.
My dad showed up, when I was 17, and yeah, he was threatening. He was threatening to beat up my stepfather, who was a small fellow. And first time in my life, I faced off my real father. And my dad's a big man, and had a bad temper, and tough. And but once we squared off, my real father realized this wasn't the way to go, and he left. That was the last time I ever saw him, as a matter of fact.
Some people could have taken their life experiences and been bitter and repeated the mistakes of their parents. But instead, he's become a great family man and helped other humans throughout life. With no major scandals in his personal life and no real on-set dramas, Chuck Norris has had almost the perfect Hollywood career. He came, he saw, he conquered, became a meme, and did it all with a quiet dignity. Beyond the kicks, the punches, and the guns, that is a strength to most admire him for. Chuck Norris may not be the greatest action star ever, but he's certainly one of the most dignified.
Like in Code of Silence I did in Chicago, I get jumped by a bunch of guys, and I lose. I get beat up, you know, because in my mind, you know, you got to be logical to a certain extent.
You want there to be a little bit of
reality there, and you know, I do. I get beat up real bad in that scene there because I thought there's 12 guys. There's no way that I can really take and win that fight, and I didn't.
Right, ratings time. For skills, Norris actually has the most disciplines of the series so far, and it shows in his movies, so much so that he's definitely the most memeable person of the series so far. And the name Chuck Norris is almost a punchline at times. This man is highly trained. He gets a 10 here. Movies will definitely trip him up though. He doesn't really have a massive Hollywood headlining movie to his name. Most of his success has come through independent and his TV show. I would definitely have to give him a 6 here. For screen presence, Norris knocks it out of the park. He is a magnificent presence on screen and a force of nature. For this, he'll get a 9. For versatility, well, this may be his lowest score so far. He doesn't really have any. He's not a trained actor and doesn't profess to be so. Therefore, his roles have all pretty much been the same. He's going to get a 5 here. And for legacy, well, it's an easy one because for all of the lack of well-known movies and his A-list success, the man has worked with some of the biggest stars in Hollywood history. And he's one of the only stars to have ever worked with Bruce Lee on screen. In fact, not just work with him, he's one of the very few to have a whole fight scene with him. Not even Jackie Chan can say that. And that will forever secure this man's legacy. It's going to be a 10 here. And that gives Norris a score of 40, putting him on the table in quite a fair position. It's a real shame that Norris didn't have a truly massive movie to really cement him higher. But what a superstar and a greatly dignified man he is. As always, big love to the Patreons and YouTube members on the screen right now. I know that Jet Li, Donnie Yen, and Michelle Yao's name have been mentioned by you guys as the next contenders. Well, next week you might just get your dream come true. In the comments, let me know which of the 3 you'd prefer. As always, please be hitting that like button. It really helps the channel to grow. I would love for you to do that. And also, if you could subscribe, that would be beautiful as well. Peace out and big love.